All right, let's jump into things. Take two. Tried to get this done a second ago, and of course, the second you sit down, internet drops out. But it seems it was just a temporary thing. So weekend wrap, getting it done a little bit earlier on the Saturday, finally, actually. So main thing is obviously get it done before the markets open on the Mondays and that. But better than sort of late on the Sunday night. So it's 12 o'clock, we just past 12, 13 past 12 on the 29th of March. And look, I was going to start off with gold here, but I think sort of DXY is probably the place to start because this thing just got absolutely crunched yesterday after that PCE data came out. And look, it's one of those things like I had the original price target based off this little range that we had sort of started to form down here, sort of giving us a price target up around that sort of 104.75. With these sort of things, I mean, look, really, where do you sort of cut the range, or did it just sort of drop just shy of it? I mean, it certainly got the break and it sort of worked its way up here, but it was very tough. And as you can see, the pullbacks very deep each time in that. And look, with DXY, it's not necessarily game over kind of thing if it does happen to sort of pull back 78%. I sort of covered this a couple of times. A lot of these sort of pullbacks through here actually sort of quite deep, as you can see, sort of where we at here. So like initially off the floor, bang, back to the 78. Maybe this little move through here I was looking at, yeah, little sort of thing where we see like obviously this one fully retraced this part, but springboarded up. Even here, 78%, and still managed to take out the highs. I didn't sort of look at this part here because it didn't obviously take out the high there, but you know what I mean. What I'm sort of saying with this is that it's not uncommon for DXY to have these sort of deep pullbacks and then actually continue on. And this is what I was sort of tracking on the Friday session. Because everybody's, that's it, it's done. And look, certainly it was having some trouble. We had that sort of sell down on Thursday where it really just opened and just bang, smacked down. And it really sort of just didn't really produce much. Sort of like, through there. And then obviously sort of through Friday's session, leading into PCE data, it got this little squeeze break, found resistance, back test top side of this falling resistance, put in new high, broke up a little bit higher, but obviously as you can see, this little area up around here, where the sort of sellers were sitting, this is the kind of area that the market said, look, it was enough for us here, it's enough for us here now. And this thing got crunched through that sort of like just after that data. And the thing is with it as well, I think it must have been a bit more of a sort of buy the rumor, sell the news kind of thing. And that, like, I was listening to some guys talk about it, and they're saying, oh, look, Powell actually sort of gave this away with the figures when he was talking the other day with PCE data. But market, like, it was a slight uptick. So you might as well have a look at the data as we sort of come through here. For some reason, again, this is only just giving sort of half the data here and that. So you've also obviously got PCE numbers and that, but then we've got, this is just the core. But the PCE numbers up and also core is up as well there again. So look, these are the kind of things that they sort of say that, the Fed's looking at PCE more than CPI and yada yada, all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, this is technically should be dollar strengthening. I wouldn't say bullish necessarily, but dollar strengthening data, and certainly not this kind of reaction. And this is the thing at the moment. This is why the market's been so sort of tricky the last couple of weeks, particularly. Your typical correlations are not working. Your typical responses to data are just going haywire. When people are doing sort of rate cuts, you're seeing the currency strengthen afterwards. So things are very much sort of playing around at the moment, but we're sort of seeing that. It's a bit tricky. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. There, I got distracted just looking at how sort of deep this pullback came. But things are certainly pretty tricky in that at the moment. I mean, gold is just absolutely beast mode status. It seems to be the only thing that people want to park their money in, and it just keeps on punching on, kind of thing. So, I'll get to sort of gold in a bit in that, but equities as well. We had a major breakdown on those as well, which I trade a little bit of, not really, just a little bit of a, when you see the trade there. So I hammered that a couple of times. So it actually did quite well sort of throughout the week. But that took out the lows, and it's looking a little bit sort of sketchy out there for risk. But at the same time, typically we know that sort of like, when it's risk averse, that's dollar strengthening stuff, but they are not, the market is not buying the US dollar, even under those circumstances. So they look for the other safe havens, and the other typical safe haven is gold, of course. And this is just yet another reason of why we're seeing gold sort of like really sort of flourish at the moment. Like you got to think about it, the money has to be somewhere. It doesn't just evaporate. And using these sort of little things here, if you've got US dollar flows coming out, equity flows coming out, this money has to go somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like, this is a risk off sort of thing. This is, well, it's, I mean, typically this is as would be sort of moving up in a risk off kind of thing, but it's not. So they're looking for other safe havens, and that's where the flows come in. So they come out of equities, out of US dollar, into metals, and pushes gold up to where we are right now. But with DXY, is it dead? That's the question. Certainly, that was a big smack on the smack in the face. Um, it has held this from a technical standpoint now. Look, it has held topside of this previous range, and we know that this was quite a significant level, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and even sort of, if you want to call this 5 or 6 through these areas through here, it danced around this zone. It worked as a support. It's come back here. Oops, not that. It's attempting to use this as a support as well. This was the play sort of through Friday, sort of saying, look, if we could get up above these levels over here, we had a chance to sort of continue back up. Obviously, they was looking for this little measured move up here. Bang, smacked on the nose. So that's out of the cards and that. Probably even go as much to sort of say that this is a sort of moot sort of price target now. So let's just zap back over there and say it just didn't feel. But from this sort of point here, look, it's struggled a lot to sort of get above here. It's held it once, a little bit of an overshoot here, twice, 3 times. This is its fourth attempt back on the top side of it all. Question now is, can it hold this point here? This was the little play that I'm thinking. If we get down underneath here, we are unable to close underneath here. So it is kind of still, from a technical standpoint, it's holding the zone. As you can see, this is on the 1 hour. And true, it's the end of the week, but you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then obviously the seventh one just sort of dripped down there. But that 7 hours, it's sort of held at this zone into the end of the week. And look, that could just sort of be while the market was really just bang, a packed up shot for the week, and they're like, okay, we've done our sell down, we can continue selling down on Monday. What I would be sort of looking for now is a little zone. I put a little zone sort of through here, and I would say that this is kind of where you want to get back above. Let's take this out here for now. So this whole move here completed down. Should it sort of break down, this is your last line of defense. I think underneath here it's absolute good night for DXY. Look, underneath 104 kind of would be, but as you can see, it did use it as a little springboard here. But I would say because this has been held so many times, this is really irrelevant. You know what I mean? I think if you come down here, that's where you'll see maybe a little bit of a reaction, a bounce, maybe a retest of this level to sort of reclaim this for the sellers, and then a second move through this 103.75. That's bang, good night. And you got to remember this thing in context is this. This is the move that we've been looking for. A move up here. Admittedly, I thought we would get a little bit touch higher or even a possible overshoot. Bang. But this is our sort of thing. So same sort of thing that I always sort of say, you've come down, you found support, you come up, you find resistance. Typically this resistance would be at a previous level of support. This kind of stopped a little bit, as you can see, in no man's land, which makes me question a little bit the legitimacy of this sell down. I thought it would have at least sort of gone up to, say, the 38% of that March sell down, which it gives you 104.90, the measured move, 104.75, overshoot to potentially come up and retest the bottom of these wicks over here. That's where I kind of thought, and this is why I'm not completely writing it off yet, because DXY, if we sort of skip away from this for 1 second, as I've covered a couple of times, look at this rolling over, bang, and then moves through. So, you know what I mean? Admittedly, this particular move right here was the election kind of period. But if we sort of have a look at other sort of USD squeezes from way back when, I suppose this is more just sideways. Trying to reference these things. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. So coming up. Oh no, it's coming back down. Bang, ratchets up again. Coming up, coming down. Oh, this time definitely. And it just keeps on pushing on. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm just keeping in the back of my mind with this US dollar squeeze, because it is a squeeze. Look, the market is sort of looking. Honestly, I think US dollar is going to 101. So I don't think we're going to be seeing the extent of these kind of moves. But what I'm saying is that when the market's looking so bearish on it, and it looks like it's coming back like this, it can then just ratchet up again. A number of these times. This has actually taken out the lows, come right down, and bang, moved up again. So there's a lot of times you're not looking at this like, you got to remember, like, this part of the chart here doesn't exist at this point. Strong sell down. It looks like it's rolling over. Certainly the second one here. Anyway, back to what we're saying. So what makes me a little bit cautious of this particular, if we can get back to it quickly here, with this sort of move is that, yes, it is sort of rolling over. It does look like it's sort of down, but it's not uncommon for this to then just have some ridiculous sort of move to the top side. We've got whatever it is, Liberation Day on Wednesday, I think this week is the 2nd. So yeah, it must be Wednesday this week. That could either sort of send this thing right up here, or it could send it right down here. Look, I think that's pretty much anybody's guess with it at the moment. But back to what I was saying, you've come down, you've found support, you're moving up, you found resistance. You're in this kind of leg here now, where this is the one that determines, is this going to be double bottom, continue, high, low? So that could be a way to sort of screw people out of the market. Look, this is just considering all possibilities. Certainly that sell down after PCE is looking like they couldn't get rid of it quick enough. And it was very much a sort of one way sort of trade. But as we see, it's bounced. It's got a little double bottom. It's holding here. I don't really count the last couple of hours of the week. It's too much, as I sort of say every week in that, because there's not really too many people that are still, at their desks doing their stuff probably. I think they've sort of packed it up for the week. So yeah, we'll see how things open up on Monday, but levels to beat, I think if you can get back above 104.24, recapture this kind of level here, because as we can see, this was obviously still, it was a little bit of support here. Whoops. Support, 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 support. You get the point. So it was quite significant for it to sort of give it up. And this is what I was saying on Friday or something. I think I put a post on X saying underneath 104, 104.20 and that we were going to see a cruise down, because this is a vital level for the market to hold, for the DXY bulls, US dollar bulls to hold. And obviously it just cut through it. So it's come down, retested this bottom level down over here. I think sort of certainly, there's some momentum into this. It is oversold. Let's have a look on the 4 hour. Yeah, look, it's come in here. It's sort of grind. But as I said, the last couple of hours of the week, you don't put too much stock in. I think sort of certainly back up above 104.28 will be a short-term move. But you can see that these are the levels that you got to deal with the sellers. So these are your zones through here and through here. Get rid of this one. Chopped it through that one a little bit. They're the levels that I think you need to kind of get through if you're going to sort of see any sort of further movement up with DXY. But for me, it kind of stopped in no man's land. I don't see any significance to this point. Certainly underneath the 38% is bullish continuation. Sorry, not bullish, but it's continuation. In this case, bearish continuation. Trend continuation is probably the better word to sort of use with it all. Yeah, it's just sort of, we'll see how we go in that. It's a bit tough to call on this one, but certainly it does look like it wants to sort of roll over here. I mean, of this whole sort of bounce move, where are we at the 50%. of this sort of move off the lows. So let's change this into green. Upside. Yeah, so it's 50% retracement of this move. As I said, look, this is the thing, 61%. That's why I would say that, look, it could potentially come down underneath here, but I think sort of certainly if you get back down here, I think enough's enough with the terms of the sort of, deep pullbacks and, hey, it's going to survive from a 78%. If you get back down to 103.50, I would say things are looking pretty dire, and that's a pretty extreme sort of move. But it has been known to be done, so it's a thing to sort of consider. But at the moment, I think there's the levels that you really got to sort of pay attention to are 103.75, 76 here, the 61%, and then really probably back up above 104.48 to see movement there. So let's just take you up here and say that's where you might be seeing some movement. Underneath here, look, I'm going to get rid of that because it's too wide. I think, look, it's quite a wide sort of window, I know, but as you can see, look, they did so much effort to get through this level. They're trying to hold it. It's worth at least a bounce, I would say, and a retest here. So I think this is really where you want to see what the market's going to do, because it's going to do one or two things here. It's either going to sort of rally up and then sort of come down, or it's going to sort of push back up and then move like that. But I think this is an area that I'm very interested in, 104.23s. So a little bit of a chop all around there, but 50% retracement. Look, it's not super, but as you know, it's dealing with a lot at the moment. So let's see this. Things all over the place here. There we go. Clean it up a little bit at least. Only 4 hours. So that's what I'm looking for in the short term. But I think this is the kind of area, 104.20, which I want to sort of see if they're going to sort of hold it or reject it. But I would see an early sort of little move to test this, as this was a little bit of a support area through here. Move up here, test it, and then sort of rock it down. Things that might sort of actually get this going is if gold does eventually cool off. If we're still in a risk-off mode and for whatever reason they start to sell gold, I think that's when, equities will, if it's in risk off mode, that's not going to be an option for it. And, if they're looking for something else that could typically be some sort of safe haven, I guess that'd be US dollar. But US dollar is really super under pressure at the moment. And I do think we're going to 101. Again, just open to the idea that this thing could squeeze a little bit first before it does come back down. All right, and moving on. So speaking of gold, this thing is absolute, as I said, beast mode with it all. So I actually just sort of put this other little, let's go through. I've got a couple of different charts of this one, so clean a chart here. Oh, sorry, no, that's a world currency version of this one here. Here we go. So finally actually making contact with the top side of this larger channel. So let's clear these ones up. I'm sure where I've got the yellow ones on there as well. So if we zoom out, let's put it on the daily. This is right up there at the moment. As you can see, this is a channel that pretty much has been sort of respected since, just call it all the way through 2024. So like 15 months or so, this has been respected. And each time it's come in here, we have seen a reaction. Is this going to be a different? Is it going to be different this time? That's the sort of question with it all. So it's hard to sort of get bearish on sort of gold, particularly when you're seeing these kind of breaks moving out through here. It just accelerated Thursday or so this week. So really a bit of chop, and then bang, flew up to the top side here. So coming into contact with this here, look, RSI does have a little bit of room. Should have want to sort of like continue a little bit here. So potential for sort of like overthrow areas and that, so overshoot, and maybe then a bit of a cooling off with it all. As I said though, sort of like with everything happening in terms of US dollar selling off, equity market selling off, the flows need to find a home somewhere. They need to be parked into something. And metals are definitely just where people are seeing the sort of, either value or just the safe haven status of it all. I would say the latter there, because I mean, the value in it at the moment is, probably diminishing the higher that this gets and the more accelerated it gets. Like if you look at this thing on a weekly, you know what I mean? Like in terms of sort of value, even if you think it's going up to sort of 34, 35, 4,000, whatever, you know, buying it at the very, very highs isn't really sort of like, oh yeah, I'm getting great value for money. Yes, in 6 months or a year's time, and it most likely will be a profitable sort of position. But you know, buying something at the very high of the highs, you know, it's a diminishing kind of potential return with a risk reward. So you're just banking on the fact that this thing will just keep accelerating and there won't be any sort of pullbacks. So look, it's coming up a little bit higher. Look, this is on the weekly. This has been teetering around this 80 for, you know, basically back into Feb. And now we've seen another accelerated move to the top side over here. So look, as I said, it's hard to sort of get sort of anything other than bullish on metals because this thing is absolutely rocking. But we can see sort of like coming into the end of the week, the market did start to sort of grind a little bit. We did see a couple of quick sell downs and very fast recoveries. Let's actually get into a lower time frame so you can see this. And it really is just really starting to range at the highs over here. Cool, and back. So yeah, look, last couple of hours of the week, as you saw, sort of DXI was kind of sort of holding that support level. We're seeing that gold is kind of just really just ranging up over the top over here. It's very much sort of like, you know, sell downs, bought, those grind back up, sell down, buy up, sell down. One sort of takeaway, I guess, would be that, you know, the buyers sort of stepped up a little bit through this period here. Obviously, sort of not allowing it back down underneath 70. But I think certainly, you know, these are the kind of levels that you kind of look for with sort of maybe a little bit of cooling. Certainly a retest of that breakout level around those 50s. But yeah, again, it's sort of like it's almost sort of like trying to pick a top on these sort of things. I did cover the other week actually, sort of you know, the breakout above 2000. The first time it went above, it went to 2075 or so. But the equivalent in percentage terms took us to 3010. Sorry, 3100. As you've got to get used to these these numbers, but these things are massive. You know, this is trying to sort of work out some sort of like gradient that this thing was sort of coming through. Obviously, just up. Let me go back up to the cleaner chart. Anyway, so look, the point is that we've found ourselves a little range up the top over here. The little breakout box. This is going to say whether we're going to sort of see a little bit of cooling or whether we're really just going to say accelerate out to the top side. I do think that any sort of move up over here is going to be met with sellers. I don't think it's necessarily going to be boom and dramatic sell downs, but I do think it's going to be ever increasingly hard to sort of accelerate through this level. But I don't think we're going to see these same sort of explosion moves, sort of moving back up. I don't think we're going to say 3,200 now. I think maybe this thing's got another 20, $30 in it. And then I think we probably come back down into this larger channel that we have been sort of forming. As to how deep, well, you got to sort of play that as it comes. Underneath 50, then you could see this as a little fake breakout, and this could be coming back down, and we could be seeing a move back down towards 3000s. But you know, deal with that when you get to that sort of point at the moment. But this little area here, so this little breakout box, is what I'm sort of going to be watching for, sort of come Monday, Tuesday. As I said, I think things are going to be a little bit choppy and up and down till this Liberation Day thing happens, and we see what's happening with the tariffs. The tariffs seem to be the big sort of driver of everything at the moment, and well, have been for a while. But I think it's more the fact of the uncertainty of them. Like these constantly, oh yeah, we're going to have tariffs on this, we're going to have tariffs on this. Actually, you know what? We're open to taking it easy. Oh no, we're putting a 25% tariff on stuff. Actually, no, we won't do that, and we'll exempt some people. Like it's just there's uncertainty with it all, and I think that's the reason. Like you know, people getting rid of the US dollar, that's fine because they do look. A couple of things there. Trump said he wanted sort of lower yields and wanted a weaker US dollar. That's happening. It's eventuating. It'll probably continue to eventuate. So hence the target of 101 or even possibly lower for DXY. But the uncertainty at the moment means that, okay, well, let's just see what happens till we have some more clarity. And gold seems to be the place that people want to sort of park things till that eventuates. Because equity markets, as I said, if I can flick onto this quickly, equity markets getting absolutely dumped through there. So, that was into the end of the week. It was 100 points sort of moved down to the bottom side there. So, you know what I mean? Equities are certainly not a place with all this uncertainty. Equities is not where people want to sort of park their money. They're getting rid of the US dollar. And as I said, they're looking for the metals. They're looking for gold. They're looking, copper's been absolutely ripping, probably different. It serves a different purpose, of course, but it is an area in which it has been ripping. Silver obviously doing quite well, not quite holding up as well as gold into the end of the week. It did sort of come off and didn't really sort of bounce. Like gold, obviously, here is like closing right on the highs. So I think that's the difference between gold and silver here is that silver is one of these ones. It's an industrial metal and also it's considered precious metal. Excuse me. So it can really flip back and forth. Like, when was running, silver was running with it, and, it's all about sort of manufacturing, and which is kind of a bit more of a sort of risk-on kind of tone. But I did cover this the other day as to, the reasons why copper's running. And, I don't think copper's running, well, not, I don't think copper isn't running, in my opinion, um, because everybody's like, oh, risk on, let's increase manufacturing, high demand, we could put the prices up. I mean, that's the way typically copper would be working. But copper's got all this sort of fear about lack of supply and tariffs and all this kind of stuff. So it's almost artificially raising the price of it. So it's not sort of like that, everybody's, let's ramp up our sort of production and GDP and figure numbers and all this kind of stuff, manufacturing numbers and figures. It's more just sort of out of fear. So that's why I think that sort of like, you start to see silver come off a little bit because it's still playing that sort of, it's playing both sides. It plays the precious metal side and also the industrial metal sort of side of it all. But yeah, gold close. Anyway, I get distracted with these things. Gold closed very high here. So look, I think any sort of close underneath 66. First target's just looking back down for a retest of these levels here, to sort of see what happens because this was the big breakout level here. So I think any sort of move up out of here early will sort of come back down into it, or we'll see just a little bit of a cooling and a move down to here and move back up. So I think sort of anywhere in this chop zone, you're just asking to be sort of, yeah, literally chopped up with it all. But yeah, we can see that sort of move throughout the week. It's very sort of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. These kind of things clear the book. And then obviously, yeah, we saw that break move to the top side there. So keep moving on. So this is what I was saying with silver. Silver very much ripped through the week. Hit that price target, died down, retested those previous highs, flew back up. I covered all these things on the Thursday, Fridays videos. So structurally in that, it worked very well. Hit the price target, came into contact with some previous highs going back to, where was this? This is back in October. So, 5-month highs. Back down to lower levels, found support where we sort of thought it would next. Oops, straight, whatever. Drag this one across. As you can see, same sort of thing every time. Resistance acted as support. Same sort of deal here. This is not a massive level. I mean, it was a high, but it wasn't like continually tested. And hence, it did offer a little springboard one time, bang, and then cut through it. Now it's a little resistance. This is a level it needs to get back above. Through here. There's a little kind of zone for it there now. Back up above, 34.26, then I think you can just deal with, potentially this range and then, up to these highs over here. But this is what I was saying on Thursday, Friday, that apart from the fact we had the measured move, which had the level over here, any move up was going to be met with some selling. Yeah, we've seen it all the way back here. Sellers, sellers. So, first time into these levels, they're not going to cut through straight away. So this sell down wasn't like, oh my God, geez, where did this come from? It has sort of come back, has retreated at a structural level, bounced, failed, came down, next structural level, resistance, resistance. I expect this level to hold a little bit more. And as it kind of did, it actually sort of held it into the close. But as you can see, it's acted as support a number of times, resistance a number of times, resistance through here, support through here. It's going to sort of be a significant level here. So I think sort of like, this is where it needs to really defend and stay above 33.90. If it doesn't, then I think you're probably sort of coming back down to mid 33s kind of thing at least. But that sell down through here was quite significant. Gold, as I said a second ago, it recovered and sort of closed on its highs. Silver lagged a little bit with that one there. Just 2 seconds, have a look at that little gold silver ratio. Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, we have sort of seen. So I got distracted with the charts. They don't make me another coffee or something before I do these. But yeah, so I think look, this is the level that we're looking for at the moment. Back up through here. If it can defend this level, I think that you could see another push back up. But really, you want to be getting above this level over here. I think that's your little area that we're going to see the direction through. So let's break this here and here. That's a little area there because we could see that this was a significant point. It would have liked to have held it, but it didn't, of course. So I think sort of unless it can recapture this and use it as a support, that I think the sort of the strength of this little pullback could see price sort of coming back down to maybe mid 33s. Let's just put you just down over here. And then sort of, see it move back down to sort of mid 33s there. Just quickly on that, we'll have a look at gold silver ratio because this was an interesting one that I sort of actually put a chart on X that we had this little channel sort of forming and a negative divergence coming into the bottom of this. Last time we saw this sort of little negative divergence rocked all the way to the top over here. With this, the significance of this, okay, so gold silver ratio has been in this range for about 5 months, going back to, depending what you want to call it, but yeah, look, sorry, 3 months, December. So basically all of this year, it's just been in this range, ping-ponging up and down, up and down, up and down. Hits the top, hits the bottom, bottom, top, boom, 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 boom. If this sort of pulls back here and then moves up and retests this 9150 kind of zone over here without completing a touchdown here, it could be quite significant because you got to sort of see this. Although this is a ratio of it all, you got to still see it in the terms of buyers and sellers. And you got your buyers here. And just like we saw with gold, they've now moved up to here. So if this holds, you're seeing the pressure move up to the top side, which really puts the risk of a breakout of the top side over here. This is another thing that I think that sort of might be limiting metals just in the short term. Because if we get a breakout of this sort of 92 and above, there's not really much stopping it to sort of moving up to 95. And if we move up to 95, we're probably going to see a fairly significant pullback on metals. I know it's tough to sort of say, hey, look, let's be bearish on metals. And I'm not saying the whole market's going to fall over, but I think that could be what we could be seeing as a little indicator prior to the market sort of pulling back a bit, because gold silver ratio, that typically, we'll be seeing gold and silver both move up. Silver will be outperforming gold in these downward kind of motions. So if you match this up with the charts, you'll see that sort of like, these are the times that silver was doing really well, as we saw, throughout this week. It pumped along, it's moving down, comes up the top and breaks out of this little channel here. Last sort of 4 hours, the last 2 hours there, silver at that time did not recover. So if this continues up over here, then it's really sort of looking more like we might see a little bit of a pullback, a deeper sort of pullback. Certainly if we break out of this gold-silver ratio here. But this negative divergence, I mean, this is one of my sort of favorite sort of reversal indicators that I sort of look for. I called it out, put a chart on X as it was coming. It was around here at the time. And certainly, we sort of saw that not really sort of hold the gains into the close, particularly with silver. So if we see this sort of move out to the top side over here, that's something that I'm going to be sort of, again, sort of putting into the equation for potential pullbacks on gold and silver. All right, flip along. We've got Aussie here. Aussie, absolute chop through here. So again, I've been sort of covering this one sort of through the week, and I've been playing more the downside of Aussie. If you look at the things, we've got CPI came in cooler, so that's obviously a little bit sort of more down for the Aussie. The one, actually, let's have a quick look at how this played out. So one, where are we here? As you can see, moved up into that sell zone and then started to move down, but really just sort of consolidating up around that top end of it all. So it hasn't really sort of seen that sell down here. So again, puts the risk in the idea that we could see another little surge and push higher here. A breakdown here, you'll probably see this with DXY breaking lower. Potential for this to move up over here. There is a good chance that this consolidates and moves up over here, and that'll be US dollar across the board. So I think sort of like for the time being, this is what's obviously sort of holding Aussie at bay. Let me get back onto the Aussie there. As you can see, the buys held this line incredibly strong throughout the week. 1, 2, 3, kind of 4. Didn't get right down into that lower level of it all, but 80s was the level where we're sort of looking, and the reactions were like 50 points, 40 points, 30 points. Each bounce, as you can see, is getting in here lower, lower, lower each time. So I do still think the risk is to be pushing down over here. I would like to buy Aussie low 62s, mid 62s to low 62s. That's my sort of idea for it all. We have got a little bit of a bear flag, which is broken, kind of retest. Also, this top side of this sort of falling resistance through here. I think, for Aussie to recover, needs to get above 63.23. I think if you can get above here, then this move is negated. And I think we'll sort of see it move up first. But at the moment, as you can see, this is very much like a ball dribbling towards the edge. Just needs that little thing to sort of push it over. Should we see some sort of bout of US dollar buying? As I said, if we saw the yuan push up a second ago, if that goes up into those higher levels, if we see some sort of like shocking recovery from DXY, that kind of US dollar buying across the market, we're already seeing equity markets getting absolutely pulverized. The US dollar is actually pushing down, so that's an up for it. China is actually holding at the highs, so I still say that that's weighing on the Aussie, and then the RBA itself is weighing on the Aussie. But this is the bigger of the three candles. But despite sort of both things on two sides of this, despite copper running to all-time highs, not affecting Aussie. It's not helping Aussie push back up, but equity markets bailing out the lows, and it still managed to hold it here. So you got to sort of think, there's so many different forces at play that are sort of like going to and fro with Aussie. Copper is pushing it up, is sort of holding it up. Equity markets is holding it down. And this is pretty much why we just had a range through the week. But for me, it's sort of like if this is your highs, your lows, your highs, your lows, you can see that it's kind of just crawling over to here. So again, underneath that sort of 62.70, you do have a little bit of a support down over here, but I don't imagine this is going to hold. I think that's just going to go boom. And I think sort of really we're going to see a move down to 62.40s. So a little bit of a 40-point move down to the bottom side there. So I'm sort of going to hold that sort of short approach towards the market above 62.30. I think that's when you can say, okay, we've negated this and then potentially move back up towards sort of 64. But I think certainly, closed the week on its lows on all time frames. This RSI here is just, tried to have this little bit of a rally here and just no response whatsoever from the RSI. It was just sort of like dribbling down. Oh, this bounce here as well. This bounce here as well. Look at that all week. That's moving down like this. Yes, the price is moving down, so it's not really a negative divergence. But as you can see, it rallied up, lower pressure. Rallied up, even lower. Rallied up, even lower. So, I think the risk is really remaining for this move to the downside here once this little support here goes. The fact that they're holding it so much, I think means that basically if it does break, it's going to be a significant kind of move. Even though sort of, 40, 50 points isn't super, super significant, you do have those sort of the confluence of this horizontal plus this sort of rising support coming through here at 62.40s. And we do have potentially this measured move coming down into this lower buy zone over here. So I think very much short is what we're kind of looking for, at least sort of like through this week. If we see DXY, look, honestly, I don't know what to expect with this Liberation Day, but I'm just thinking that some of these trades just look too obvious. US dollar rolling over, gold going to the moon, Aussie dollars holding up a kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll see how these sort of things play out. But that's pretty much my bias to be looking down to the bottom side over here. But as you can see, it really that is again that's your breakout box. But there's a lot more work to be done to go out the top side than there is for this. The path of least resistance is to just come down out the bottom here. All right, on to one. And as I said, look, we got the squeeze up over here, hit that sell zone. Beautifully. This is where we thought the market would react in that. Not on the line necessarily, but like up above, clip out all these kind of levels, bang, push back down. But it has failed to go down. And as you can see, it's really just consolidating this level here. But if we would have sort of just put a little breakout box on this one as well, seems to be the play of the day for the moment, the breakout box. But this is the thing that I think that sort of gives you the risk here. It's either this move or above here, and we get a move back up here. And if we do get the move up here, that's what I'm kind of looking for. Potentially a little bit of a squeeze, and then we see the sell down. This kind of move here would obviously sort of see, would see Aussie sort of break probably towards the lows. A weaker yuan is going to sort of affect the Aussie in that regard. That US dollar buying to get this across here won't necessarily be, well, it won't be just sort of isolated to just this market. We'll probably see US dollar buying across the board. That could potentially be what cools gold off a little bit. Oops, and also could sort of see what DXY could just ratchet up another level. Look, I don't think this is just a stepping stone recovery to go all the way up or anything like this. But again, I'm open to the idea that it looks a little bit too obvious for these things to just roll over. So maybe they screw everybody out first and then sort of move it down. And finally with copper. So copper actually sort of had a nice little sell off after that scream at top that it had this week. So this was really, I've covered it sort of throughout the week, but this is just capitulation here. And it just went bang up. This was a 5-minute candle or something that it went 2.3%. And then obviously the subsequent move, boom, 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 comes down to the bottom side. So if you look at this in terms of like, highs to lows throughout after the capitulation, this just pulled back 5% in 2 days or so. It's holding this sort of support level where we've sort of seen, this is the launch pad for them to sort of move along to take out the all-time highs, and it's acting as support again. So should you get a breakdown under this level, there's little levels of support, grind, all this kind of stuff over here, but I'd be looking for the larger kind of levels. So a little bit of a sort of breakdown to come back down over to here. This would go in line with possibly metals cooling off. You'd see, I know they're different, they serve different purposes in that, but sort of we saw throughout the week at one stage this little sell down through here. Gold got smacked 20, 30 bucks. It was around the time it was actually breaking out. But it broke out, it dropped 30 bucks in like a couple of minutes. We saw silver get smacked at the same time. We saw silver get smacked at the same time, gold get smacked, and copper. So all the metals did run together at that time. So although they kind of serve different purposes, one being a sort of precious metal, the other being sort of one being precious metal, one being sort of industrial, or the others being industrial metals. When the metals get sold off and that, they can all sort of just see each other and sort of same sort of thing. When this is breaking out and moving high, gold's also doing that. The different metals serve different purposes, but they can still run together. They're not like completely independent of each other. But again, what I'm sort of looking for is potentially, DXY moving up. We see a little bit of, maybe not necessarily DXY moving up. Sorry, I misspoke there. But if we see a little bit of a sort of cooling off in gold, we see a break of this support level here on copper. We see a breakdown on Aussie. We see yuan move up. That kind of all tends to kind of sort of flow together a little bit with me. I mean, you need the confirmations of these things, but this is kind of like the approach that I'll probably be taking throughout this week to sort of see. So let's put a little alert here. So it's breaking back test supports. Again, look, I'd like to buy it, but I'd like to buy it down 488. That's the kind of level that I feel a little bit happier to sort of do, which is, as I said, quite a significant drop off from the highs. That's cool. That's a third of the pullback of its whole move this year. Like it's gone 30% plus. So it's been an absolute beast. But you know, all these things do have to cool off eventually, albeit sort of looking a little bit tough to sort of stand in the way of some of these things. But as I said, as these things came out through the week, these capitulation moves generally result in fairly deep pullbacks. And we can see copper, obviously, percentage-wise, can move quite strong. All right, so I think that's about it in terms of the charts. Sort of covered everything there. Data coming out this week. What do we have coming through? So we've got daylight saving changing in Europe. We have next week it changing in Australia. So everything goes a little bit more out of whack for this week, and then again out of whack next week. So it's important to I'll be writing down sort of like all the different hour changes as to what time we should be expecting volumes coming in, because obviously that means that Europe's going to be opening an hour earlier. Move forward by 1 hour. Yep. So it's going to be opening an hour earlier for us in Australia. Okay, so moving through, we got a bit of China data coming out on Monday, looking pretty reasonably flat kind of thing. Again, keep an eye on these sort of things for potential sort of how it may affect the yuan. If we get a stronger number here, you may sort of see one strengthen up a little bit. A weak number there may be the one that sort of gives it a bit of a push up in terms of the chart, sort of breaking up to that higher level that we're talking about. Nothing really else of note through here. Nothing of note through here. So got the RBA on Tuesday. So 4.1% looking to hold. I think this is pretty much stock standard for the moment. I don't think, well, they're definitely not going to be hiking in that, but I don't think you've seen enough to sort of say, hey, look, yep, Aussie's rocketing along. Let's cut. So I think this is pretty much will come in as expected. So I think the press conference afterwards, where we got press conference 1 hour afterwards, I think that'll be the one to keep an eye on. So that's definitely going to be a bit of a mover for the Aussie come this week. Moving forward, a bunch of PMIs, nothing too. You got jolts, of course, first week of the month, so it's going to be NFP month as well. Doesn't seem to put it on here, but this is April 2nd is the tariff date. So this is Liberation Day over in America for whatever that is. I need to look into it myself a little bit more. It's also ISM manufacturing and jolts. So these are the kind of sort of bits of data. 1 a.m. Geez, that's pretty late for it all. Bits of data sort of coming out through here. Again, looking pretty flat on these sort of numbers here. ISM a little bit of a cooling off. But I think this kind of stuff will kind of it definitely sort of they're larger bits of data, maybe ISM more so than jolts, but I think this is going to be overshadowed by Liberation Day and the tariffs and all that kind of stuff. As I said, tariffs are really what I'm looking at this week. You got ADP coming out here, and slight tick up. So obviously, sort of more higher numbers, stronger for US dollar. Moving through, trades balance slowing down a little bit for Aussie. Should this come in as expected here, this will be a little bit of a sort of weaker sort of mover for Aussie. Moving forward, general unemployment. This thing hasn't moved in weeks. You see, it's like 222, 2220, so like very stable at the moment. Services PMI, I think this will be something to watch on Friday morning, and then of course NFP coming into the end of the week. So interesting because the NFP they're looking for fairly weak numbers, 139, but a tick up in ADP. So a little bit of a mishmash of numbers that are coming through there. But yeah, so little bits of data in that. Eyes mainly on tariffs and the rate decision from the RBA. But as I said, the rate decision I think is pretty much a stock standard. It's going to be held flat. So it's really just the kind of language that they use around that period there. All right, that's it from me.